Hi, welcome to Fighting Against Fat Loss Part 1. My name's Gavin Aquilina. I'd really like to welcome you and say thanks so much for trusting us with your time and attending this first of a three-part series on some of the physiological factors that have an impact upon our clients' ability to achieve fat loss. A little bit of background. I'm the Director and Chief Inspiration Coach at ptcoach.co. I'm a global master trainer for the Life Fitness Academy, and over the last 16 years, I've had the opportunity to present in over 40 countries around the world and present over 1,000 presentations. I'm the Education Director at Life Fitness Australia and a guest coach at the Australian Institute of Fitness. A lot of people have said, fighting against fat loss, Gav, where, what, why? Basically, it started about 5 years ago. And I had questions still after 20 plus years in the industry in relation to nutrition and unanswered questions. And so I thought I'll go back and do my master's in nutrition. I found a lot of things and learned a lot of things, but when I was doing my final thesis, I wanted to really focus down on the physiological factors, things that might have an impact or limit an individual's ability to lose weight. The title of my thesis was pretty complicated. It was Beyond a Linear Physics Model of Weight Loss and Understanding the Variance of Optimizing Weight Loss Through an Obesity Systems Model. Pretty complicated, but my goal here is to take the findings of that and simplify them. Now, if we simplify them, really the goal is to identify physiological factors that we can test for and put an intervention in place. These factors are things that are going to limit someone's ability to lose weight. We so often, I hear things such as, my metabolism's slow or the hormones are out, and it becomes these subjective statements as to why people can't achieve a result. For us to be as effective as we possibly can, we've got to be really objective. We've got to learn as much as we can about the individual to achieve an optimal outcome. So what are the outcomes? The outcomes from this part 1 of the series. Topic 1. Is weight loss as simple as energy in versus energy out? Topic 2, what is successful weight loss? We hear that somebody loses weight, or we see shows like The Biggest Loser, but what actually is successful weight loss? We're talking about metabolism and weight loss, and there's so much talked about with respect to metabolism and slow metabolism, and this person's metabolism is quick, that's why they're thin. So we're going to examine metabolism and look at some of the more recent findings in relation to that and your clients and weight loss. And finally, essential fat loss facts that impact weight loss. Here we're going to review metabolism again. We're going to talk about set point theory. We're going to talk about the phrase that's batted around that a calorie isn't a calorie anymore. And people say, don't count calories. Is it true? Is it not? What should we be thinking when we're working with our clients? What is best practice at the moment as far as what the research is saying? So if we start into it, is weight loss as simple as energy in minus energy out equals body weight status? The body weight status being, do we stay the same? Do we put on weight? Do we decrease weight? There's many different trains of thought in this area. And a lot of people say, hey, no, throw it out. The equation isn't right. It's not correct. A lot of people still use it in common medical practice. Now, I'm not going to say to throw it out, but what I will say, and I'll start at the end point here, is use it with caution. Be aware that there is so much more happening. And what we're going to be looking at through this three-part series is really explaining what is happening. But with that said, we have to start somewhere. Like if somebody says, well, don't use this equation, they're basically saying, well, let's make it a lot of guesswork. So we're going to look at this equation and we're going to look at possible modifications that have been made to it as well. So what does it do? The energy in minus energy out gives our body weight status. It gives us a formula that gives us a starting point, but it's not the complete answer. We know simply that if the calories eaten are equivalent to the calories burned, our body weight stays the same. Calories eaten are more than the calories burned, we put weight on. And if the calories eaten are less, then we lose weight. The same concept still holds true, but there is so many other things we have to consider in relation to this whole dynamic model that is created. Our goal is to aim to know as much as we can about our client Get the best and most accurate information you can and do the best with this information that you can get from them. Now, I have a whole other presentation, and please let me know. I'm going to give my email, and I didn't say this at the start. If you have questions that come up through this presentation, please write them down. I'm going to give my email, and you can email me the questions, and I'll give you a personal response, but I'll also post them to my Gav Aquilina Facebook page in response as well. This is a complete presentation. This is a one-day workshop where it's looking at understanding your client as much as you possibly can. So I won't drill down into the depths of this, but if we have a look at some of the information that I want to get if I'm going to start a program, a weight loss program with somebody, I want to know their age, their gender, their body weight. With these three factors, I can start, and possibly height, I can start to use scientific calculations to determine a predicted metabolic rate. Percentage body fat is another factor that can be used if you use, say, the Katchen-McArdle formula versus the Harrison-Benedict. It's another one that can be utilized to determine someone's metabolic rate. We want to get some metabolic rate calculation. We want to know where this person potentially is at as they start with us. Now, we can use these figures and do a scientifically predicted formula, but is it the most accurate? No, and we're going to look at some research in a little bit, but it gives us a starting point. If we want to be as accurate as possible, then you want to be able to use something like a metabolic cart to do some gas analysis with somebody, which gives us the true metabolic rate of the person across from you. For most of us, this is unrealistic. So using these formulas is a great starting point. But once again, if we're using these formulas, being aware of the variability that can occur. And I'm going to discuss metabolic rate in a lot more depth. Then we've also got the calories they burn per minute during exercise. Once again, quite a big variable that can occur, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. Then finally, it comes down to, well, what is their goal weight loss? What do they want to lose? There's the shows like The Biggest Loser that banter around the ability to lose things like 5 kilograms in 1 week. You know, is it realistic? And what time do they have to achieve the goal of losing the weight they wish for? So what we want to do is, let's say somebody says, look, I want to lose 5 kilograms in 10 weeks. If we say, look, what is a potential starting point? Where is a place we can start from? And I've had the opportunity to ask a simple question. Now, the simple question that I ask a lot of people is, if they want to lose, somebody wants to lose 1 kilogram of fat, what is the best theoretical prediction of the negative calorie balance we've got to create to lose 1 kilogram of fat? Okay, now I'm talking about best starting points here. So to lose 1 kilogram of fat, we've got to create a negative 7,700 kilocalorie deficit to lose 1 kilogram. So therefore, if somebody wants to lose 5 kilograms in 10 weeks, now remember, when we're first trained, we're told you can lose from 0.5 to 1 kilogram per week safely. So often when trainers hear 5 kilograms in 10 weeks, they go, yeah, you can lose that. And my question is, well, okay, show me how. Where do you come up with this figure? So for mine, we want to have a little bit of knowledge about what is realistic. I'm going to go through a bit of a calculation here, and by no means is this the depth that I personally would do the background calculations before I sit down and discuss goals with a client. I'll always come to them with a very user-friendly summary, but this is what I'm trying to work out in the back end. What is realistic potentially within the best theoretical model? 5 kilograms in 10 weeks. That means, therefore, if I want to lose 5 kilograms, it's 5 kilograms times negative 7,700 kilocalories, which means I have to create a cumulative deficit of negative 38,500 kilocalories to lose 5 kilograms. We've said we want to do it over a 1 week period. So it's my negative 38,500 divided by my 10 weeks means that I've got to create a negative 3,850 kilocalorie balance per week. My next question is, well, okay, as far as exercise, what's the average calories per minute that somebody might burn up? It's a very personal thing, and this is a test that I'll do for each person individually. But if we look at an average, the average person will burn up around 10 kilocalories per minute through exercise. So the next part comes, well, how often do people train? Now, this was Dr. Paul Bedford, one of our global master trainers with the Life Fitness Academy. He's done some amazing research into frequency of training. And if you look at the average frequency with which somebody trains who does not work with a trainer, you're looking at just over 1 session per week. But let's say we had a good person. Let's say we had somebody who's going to train 3 days per week. So they're going to train 3 days. Let's say they do a 60-minute session, which means you probably get 40 minutes of decent work out of them when they're training. So we're going to do that also times 10 kilocalories per minute that they're burning up, which means through exercise, they can create a negative 1200 kcal balance there. So if they're looking to lose half a kilogram per week, they are still 2,000, so they've got the negative 3850 is what they have to lose, minus the 1200, which we've just calculated from exercise, which means they're still negative 2,650 calories short of their goal. So what does that mean? Well, it means as far as nutrition, if we divide the 2,650 by 7 days a week, it means they've got to create a calorie deficit as far as eating on a daily basis of negative 380 kilocalories below their metabolic rate. Now, a lot of people say, well, you know, what about weight training? Weight training is better than cardio, etc. For mine, I'll come back to that. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's just finish with this part here. So negative 38 kilocalories below their metabolic rate is where they've got to take their nutrition to achieve just half a kilogram per week. Shows such as The Biggest Loser, etc., are one of the banes of our life because it sets up unrealistic expectation. But what is important for us to know as trainers is what is a potential starting point for our clients to work from. Okay, so we've got the starting point. We understand where that's coming from now. So the final part in this, or the second final part, is the big picture is much more dynamic and far-reaching than the simplicity of this formula that I've just done. But we have to start somewhere. We've got to start somewhere. And even the most prolific researcher in metabolic rate of recent times, Kevin Hall, he does still refer back to the energy in, energy out, but in more complex and dynamic models. And we're going to look at the complexity and the dynamic models when we look at metabolism. If we have a look at a complex and dynamic model, there was the UK, they did what's called the Foresight report, and they looked at all the variables that can have an impact on someone's ability to lose weight. Now get lost in this picture here. This is what they came up with, a generic map. Now, you speak to anyone, they say, you know what, it's going to be a mathematical systems model that's going to help us formulate the best treatment for somebody with obesity. When we start looking at everything from genes to disease, to training, to exercise intensities, to fitness levels, to exercise environment, to friends who have a very big impact on individuals' obesity levels, massive impact here. My goal as part of my thesis was to take this and trim it down further. So what I did is I worked with Dr. Gary Egger, a leading fat loss specialist here in Australia. And with Gary, we took some of his simplifying of this and we put it into a dynamic systems model that simply looked at drivers that progress us towards obesity. Distal drivers being government policy, medial drivers being food availability, wealth, money, etc. Proximal drivers then being your energy in, energy out. But all of these, they can be up or down regulated by these top factors here. And the ones that I wanted to focus on are moderators, more specifically physiological moderators, things that are going to have an impact on those drivers, the genetic and physiological markers. So things that we're going to be looking at and discussing in part 2 and part 3 of this are going to be things like cortisol levels. What impact do they have? We hear a lot of people talking about adrenal fatigue. Okay, adrenal fatigue is driving in towards your cortisol levels there. We're going to discuss ghrelin, its impact, leptin, what impact does it have? We're going to talk about that a bit today, actually. High insulin levels, gene variations, metabolic rate and metabolic adaptation. We're going to talk about this today also. Abnormal gut microbiome. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion there. Abnormal thyroid, C-reactive protein, and what's called metaflammation, which is basically associated with all modern metabolic disease. And so many of us in society are walking around with this low-grade level of inflammation or what they call metaflammation. So important for us to know about. And then you've got high phthalate levels. And phthalate levels are the chemicals that flow around in our bloodstream that can cause us metabolic distress. So if we jump ahead, well, what is successful weight loss? You know, we have the Biggest Loser, and they turn around and they show us these people losing massive amounts of weight. So what is successful weight loss? It's no real sort of epiphany, but basically successful weight loss, it's not the ability to lose the weight. Losing the weight is the easy part, but it's the ability to lose the weight, but more importantly, the ability to keep the weight off. And this is where the body, we're going to talk about set point theory, we're going to talk about metabolism. This is where your body is very well evolved at trying to keep your body weight at a certain level, trying to restrict you from losing weight. And we're going to talk about some of the things such as metabolism and what's called adaptive thermogenesis. We're going to talk about the set point theory. We're going to talk about leptin, a number of fat cells that can have an impact on someone's ability to lose, or not so much to lose weight, but to keep the weight off once they have. An amazing website, the National Weight Control Registry. What they did is they put it out and they wanted people who'd lost 13.5 kilograms and had kept it off for 12 months or longer. Now, what people could do is they could register, and as part of this study, it's an ongoing study that they're doing, is they looked at what the common traits were within these people. Now, this is just a view of the actual site itself, and you'll see it's got research findings up here. I strongly recommend you come and have a look. And you know what? It flies in the face of what some people say. For example, a lot of people say, oh, don't weigh, don't weigh, don't weigh. Well, if we're looking to achieve an outcome, then we want to weigh. If somebody wants to stay disciplined or focused in their outcome, they have to weigh. Yes, I'm not talking about the emotional and the psychological aspect, but what they show here and what the figures prove is that the more frequently somebody weighs, the more likely they are to keep the weight off. And I'm talking your daily and weekly are the best. If it's monthly, the ability to keep the weight off, it's just this relationship that is steadfast, that the more frequently you weigh, the more likely you are to keep that weight off. Another very interesting one that came out of the National Weight Control Registry was, and I'm not making a statement on diet or eating plans, but the majority of these people, they were eating low-fat diets. Another one is the majority of them were doing 1 hour of exercise most days of the week as well. One that we do say that people should participate in, but I really strongly recommend that you do attend that site and have a look and see what it has to say. But you'll see I've got a graph down the bottom here, and it says comparison of major diets. Now, a lot of people push diets, and they push their own bias towards people to do. What you'll see here is this compares 4 diets. We've got the Atkins diet, which is a low carbohydrate diet, higher fat. Got the Ornish diet, which is a very low fat diet. Weight Watchers, which we know is a point system based, and the Zone diet, which is moderate carbohydrates, moderate fat, and moderate protein levels through there. So with these diets, what you'll see is that down the bottom here, we're looking at percentage of weight loss. It's a percentage that somebody lost of their total body weight. You'll see through this study that the Atkins diet lost 3.9% of their body weight, the Ornish 6.2%, so it achieved the greatest weight loss percentage-wise. Weight Watchers 4.5 and Zone 4.6. But this is actually in the process of losing weight. So you've got the process of losing weight, then the ability to keep the weight off. You'll see that for the Atkins diet and the Ornish, they both had a 50% dropout rate. So that meant that only half the people actually stayed the duration of the study. Now, I haven't got the exact number of weeks, but from the percentage of body weight lost, we could look at and probably guesstimate that it was around 12 weeks. And I hate guesstimating, I do apologize. I haven't got the exact weekly period there, but let's say it's around a 12-week period. 50% of people were not successful in achieving the outcome there. Yeah, 12, it could be a little bit longer as far as weeks. And I can find that information. Please email me if you do wish for it. But the most important figure here is that 50%, so 1 in every 2 drop out. Whereas we drop down to the Weight Watchers and Zone diets, you're looking at a 25% dropout rate. So only 1 in every 4. So Atkins and Ornish, you've got a 50% chance your clients are going to be successful. And in the Weight Watchers and Zone, you've got a 75% chance your clients are going to be successful. What is the most appropriate diet for your client? We have so many people pushing these diets that they think are great. For example, paleo being a big one that is being followed blindly. And people are saying, hey, look, this is the only thing to do. But the problem we face is it the best diet for the person sitting across the table from you? Ask questions or learn as much as you can. So outcomes from this are, it's the ability for someone to stick to a plan to achieve their weight loss, but then the ability for them to keep that weight off. Please do go have a look at that National Weight Control Registry, great website. So now we look at metabolism and weight loss. So with respect to metabolism and weight loss, what are some of the considerations that we want to make through there? Basically, we looked at the calculations previously and I discussed metabolism. Okay, now what we said previously there is that to lose 1 kilogram of fat, we have to create a negative 7,700 kilocalorie balance. And that is the best starting point as far as knowledge at the present moment. If you then use the Harris-Benedict equation, well, I've used the Harris-Benedict equation. There's many, there's Mifflin, St. Joia, there's the Katcher-McArdle equation. I've used Harris-Benedict. It's the person that we're using is a 70 kilogram person. They're 165 centimeters tall, 35 years of age, and they're male. If we do the calculation, their metabolic rate is 2,103 kilocalories per day. For them to lose 1 kilogram in 2 weeks, or for anybody from this theoretical model to lose 1 kilogram in 2 weeks, you would need to create a negative 550 calorie deficit. Okay, so negative 550 calorie deficit per day, and that would achieve a negative 7,700 kilocalorie balance. So if we look at this further, for our person, 70 kilograms, 165, 35-year-old male, their metabolic rate would be 2,103 kilocalories per day. To achieve their goal, they'd need a calorie deficit of 550 kilocalories per day, which means I've assumed here that there's no exercise, all right, just to keep the calculation nice and easy. So metabolic rate is simply just their activity and movement in day-to-day life, but no specific organized exercise. So that means if they took their food intake of 1,553, it would take them to lose 1 kilogram 14 days. Now, a lot of people have with this the expectation that if you keep on this formula of 550 calorie deficit, that they're going to continually lose 1 kilogram per 14 days. But if we look at this person, 70 kilograms in scenario 1, then they lose 5 kilograms down to 65, exactly the same person, then down to 60 kilograms. What happens? At the start, this is the scenario we looked at. Metabolic rate, 2,103 minus 550, 1,553 calories. Food intake means they would lose the 1 kilogram in 14 days. But for a lot of people, what happens is they don't continually modify this model. And this is where we start talking about a dynamic systems model. As soon as somebody starts losing weight, things change. Things change. The body weight changes. Best calculation we could do as far as metabolic rate, it should change as well because body weight has changed. But a lot of people, they don't make it dynamic. They keep that same calorie food intake. So they've started at negative 550, which is 1,550. They keep it at this calorie intake. And then what happens is the person, or they keep their eating, and it doesn't even have to be calorie intake, but they keep the person at the same eating level, expecting the same response. And what happens? The deficit between the food eaten and the decreasing metabolic rate So if I've lost 5 kilograms, my metabolic rate will go from 2103 down to 2014. If I lose another 5 kilograms, I go down to 1925. So I've lost almost 200 calories there. That means that if I've lost 10 kilograms and I'm still eating 1,553 calories per day, it would now take me 21 days to lose 1 kilogram. It's a dynamic model that needs to have information fed back into it on a regular basis. So say we did feed that information back into it on a regular basis, and we readjusted that food intake to keep on taking us down to the negative 550 per day. What would it mean? If we did readjust and we kept on losing, would we? Would I start at 70 kilograms, keep on readjusting, and then by week 50 have lost 24.5 kilograms and be down at 45.5 kilograms in body weight? And if not, why not? So if I'm starting at my 70 kilograms, my 550 calorie deficit, and if I keep on recalculating this every week, why would I not be able to keep on losing and losing and losing? What has been done, because that is a linear relationship, it's a linear formula that we're looking at. A great researcher, Kevin Hall, does a lot of work on metabolism, and I'll show you some of the titles of his studies in a short while. But if we have a look at also the calorie trial, a big trial that's being done with respect to weight loss, what we'll see in the top graph here is we see body weight in kilograms, and we see the weight predicted by the rule that I was talking about before. Okay, so negative 550. What it says is this is the linear relationship. If you keep on modifying and adjusting, you would keep on losing in a linear format through there. But what happens is there is now what we call a dynamic model, a dynamic weight loss model that is being produced. And what the dynamic model says is, you know what, it doesn't continue linear, it starts to plateau, it starts to curve off. We will see that we've got weight loss on the y-axis there, and on the x-axis is the time in days. So we go out to 90 days or 3 months. What they showed here was that the 103 kilogram male who had a deficit of 860 kilocalories per day, about a 25% deficit compared to their metabolic rate. What happened for this person was, as they lost. So you've got that starting point, the black square. The next black square is how they were tracking at 45 days or halfway through. And by the time they got to the 90 days, what happened? They were falling into the dynamic model. So if we then have a look at it longer term, we come down the bottom here, you'll see you've got weight once again on the Y, and you've got your days on the x-axis there. We're now up to 400 days or over 1 year. Theoretically, like we showed in that table before, we believe that we could keep on losing. But what happens is we have a plateauing out or a flattening out of the weight loss. So the question comes, well, why? Why does this happen, and where does it come from? Big question that we've got to ask, and what are some of the factors that are going to contribute to that? That leads us into the essential fat loss facts that impact weight loss. So if we have a look, what are some of these facts? Well, the first section that we're going to focus on is the metabolism again. Now the metabolism here, well, the first one, a fact that Hall found was that the metabolic rate for a given body composition for two people of the same gender, so same body weight, the same amount of lean weight and the same amount of fat weight, but their metabolic rates may vary between the individuals by up to 300 kilocalories per day. So what does that mean? Basically, if you're looking at a 100 kilogram person, it's maybe a 10% difference between one person and the other. If you're down at a 60 kilogram person, it could be up at around 18%. Around 18% of their total metabolic rate per day. So with respect to this, yes, we've got to use these formulas if we don't have the ability to do gas analysis, but with those formulas, make sure you're constantly monitoring and ready to make modifications for your client as you're approaching their weight loss. An example could be you might predict their metabolic rate incorrectly there, and they might be losing weight too rapidly. Now, because you've taken their body composition, you know their lean weight and their fat weight. If they start losing lean weight, then you've got to narrow back. You've got to give them a bit more food and a bit more protein to decrease that lean body weight loss. So the reverse can happen though. You might start somebody on what you think will achieve a result as far as body fat loss, but they start on what we might believe is a plateau. What we've got to do is we've got to be ready to be dynamic in our approach and constantly readdress and reassess on a regular basis. Hall, who you'll see is the author there, he has done a lot of fantastic research, and here are some of the ones that I used in my thesis there. And energy balance, its components and implications for body weight regulation, is mathematical modeling applicable to obesity treatment, metabolic adaptation, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, metabolic slowing with massive weight loss. All these factors, some amazing research and very, very insightful research for where we're heading. With all this said, Hall still comes back and says, you know what, there is a component of energy in, energy out that relates to it. It's just that there's more factors that feed into it than what we originally believed. One of the ones that you saw there was metabolic rate and adaptive thermogenesis. So with this, I almost put this in under the next topic. And the next topic is the set point body weight theory. The reason I was going to put this in under the set point body weight theory is for the fact that adaptive thermogenesis says that if we use the example, my previous example there, my person who lost 5 to 10 kilograms, let's say they lost 5 kilograms. What we predicted on that previous slide was that from them losing 5 kilograms, their metabolic rate would drop by, and let's use it as an example, let's say 150 calories. So they lose 5 kilograms, their body weight goes down, their metabolic rate goes down by 150 kilocalories. That is what a theoretical model would say. But what happens with adaptive thermogenesis? The body says, you know what? You're trying to starve yourself. You're trying to lose weight. So what I'm going to do is normally it'd go down by 150 for the amount of body mass that you've lost. But just to protect you, I'm going to suppress your metabolic rate even further. So instead of it only going down by 150, it drops by 225 kilocalories per day. The body is very good at protecting you from losing weight. That leads us into the set point body weight theory. What is it? The set point body weight theory, that is basically where they turn around, and it was a theory developed in 1982 by Bennett and Guerin, and it was to explain why people, even after repeated dieting and approaches to weight loss, that they couldn't lower and lower and lower their body weight. So what they basically had to do here, or what we have to do, is we have to consider, okay, the human body, it's not well adapted to protect against weight gain. Okay, so what are we saying? At the present moment in society, we're having this obesogenic environment created. If we have a look down the bottom here, this shows you the map of America and the different states. Now, basically, we see that the darker blue there means that there's 10 to 14% of the people in that population who have a BMI greater than or equal to 30. So if we then come over to the next slide, you will see that those figures, they don't have a 10 to 14% scale in there. You're looking at around 15 to 19% being the lowest percentage. It then travels north of that up to the point where we end up with greater than 30% of people being in that overweight, obese category there. What has happened is this was the first tabling of this was in 1990. 18 years later, only 18 years later, do we see such a massive obesity epidemic. The body hasn't had the opportunity to adapt to stop us from putting on weight. It hasn't adapted yet. It has a few things in place. I'm going to talk about leptin in a little bit where it tries, but very unsuccessfully. With the set point body weight theory, if you do believe in it, basically it is stopping us more so from decreasing weight to a dangerous level than it is from increasing weight. So the protective mechanisms in losing weight that we have is the adaptive thermogenesis, where the body suppresses the metabolic rate to a lower level so it limits the ability to lose weight. Also, leptin, a hunger hormone there. With respect to leptin, it has an inverse relationship. As I lose weight, less leptin is produced and I then become more hungry. Theoretically, as I put on weight, the body produces more leptin, and as a result of that, I feel a greater feeling of satiety as a result of chronic energy balance there. What happens here, if we talk about leptin and leptin being triggered? Set point body weight. Some people say genetically it's determined. So say it is genetically determined. And what happens is, if we have a look down the bottom right here at our little fat molecules here, what we have is we have our fat cells. Now, this here by Sostrom in 1980, they said that there's around 30 to 40 million fat cells in the body. These cells can increase in size or increase in number. He said up to around 75 million. Some more recent stuff has said it can even be up to around 120 million in an obese individual. But what we know about these fat cells is that they want to be, if we talk about how full they want to be, they're looking at around, they want to be around 60 to 70% full. They don't want to be at capacity, but they don't want to be half or less than 60% empty. What happens with obesity is we go from having these fat cells, we then fill the fat cells right up to where they're 100% full. The body then turns around and says, well, wait up, we need more of these. And so we go into this hyperplasic response where we increase the number of fat cells. So for my obese person, I increase the number of fat cells. Now, the problem that we have here is that if in my normal person, we go below 60 to 70% full, the body says, wait up, we're going into starvation mode. And so it decreases the release of leptin, which is a trigger for increasing appetite. Then what happens? We increase size, they become full, we have this hyperplasic response where we increase the number of fat cells. But then we turn around and say, you know what, I want to make a change. I want to start losing some weight. So now we've gone up and we might have tripled our number of fat cells. We say I want to lose weight. The problem that we have is these fat cells don't disappear once we've put them on. So what happens is we try and shrink the size of them. But the problem is we have to shrink them below 60% to 70% of their size. So they start thinking, wow, you're starving me. You're starving me. And so then we have this appetite stimulatory response, which means it's exceptionally hard for a person who has previously been obese or overweight, who's increased the number of fat cells, to keep weight off, because they can lose it, but the body starts sending these hormonal signals out saying, eat, 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 because you're trying to starve yourself. For mine, a really important part for us as health professionals and allied health professionals in understanding and being able to empathize with the problems that somebody is going to face and acknowledging what strategies might we put in place to try and overcome this leptin response there. I say there empathize, I don't say sympathize, because for mine it's always about trying to find a solution and facilitate somebody achieving their result, not giving somebody an excuse not to address it. Then we have a look as far as the essential fat loss facts. Is a calorie still a calorie? And this is where we start talking about the gut microbiota, leaky gut and calorie harvest. What we know is that with respect to absorption of nutrients across the gut wall, we normally have a normal functioning, if we look at the picture down the bottom right here, normal tight junctions between the mucosal cells in our intestinal tract. But by eating inflammatory foods and having an inflammatory diet, what happens is we end up creating inflamed and angry cells across our gut lining, and we end up with what's called leaky gut. And that is where there is an opening between these walls. What that then allows, it allows calories or the calorie harvest, so calories being taken in to be digested and utilized, to be utilized within the body, it allows them to cross the gut wall at a lower thermogenic cost. It doesn't take as many calories to get them across there. So what that means is what might have been equivalent to 1 calorie before, it gets across with 20% greater efficiency, which means it's now equivalent to 1.2 calories. So calories are getting across the gut wall. There is so much more research, I believe, to be done here, because what also happens is we start to get some foreign particles traveling across that gut wall. Now they're recognized as foreign bodies traveling in, and that leads to part of this metaflammation, which metaflammation being associated with modern metabolic disease in a big way. Metaflammation is something that we will be talking about in series 3 of this fighting against fat loss. As far as is a calorie still a calorie? Well, our technology is becoming better. Is the Outwater system, now that was the system for determining what the calories are in food, is it accurate? Now, what we know, and in 2012 was where there was 2 studies done, and these related to nut products. The first one here being in relation to almonds, another one being in relation to pistachio nuts. And what we found, or what has been found, is that what we previously thought would be the calorie content of something like an almond was actually overestimated, which is a positive thing for us. It might have been, they said that you're looking at sort of 150 calories for a certain portion of almonds, let's say 10 to 12 almonds, 150 calories. And the way they determined that was obviously with calories. They put them in a beaker, heat them up, burn them, and it produces heat and heats water, which is how we determine the calorie content. Now, what they found though was that it's great. You could make that happen with the fire, but through the digestive tract, it's not as efficient at breaking all the cell walls down of the product. And so therefore, some of these nutrients or calories are still trapped inside the fibrous cell wall there, and they weren't able to be liberated. So there is question being asked about, do we need to actually review calories in food and to see, are we accurate in what we're saying? Then you've got things like the calories in fat versus protein in thermogenesis. We know that protein, when being taken into the body, it requires a lot more energy for it to be utilized and to be processed and stored. And so protein has a very positive thermogenic effect versus fats and carbohydrates. So protein itself means that we're burning more calories by taking in 1 gram of protein, okay, per unit of, than we do for our fats and carbs. So positive there for us if we're consuming a higher protein diet. But with that said, remembering nutrients and fiber are essential. Don't run too blindly in the direction of just saying, grabbing onto the fact, well, protein's great, let's take lots of it in, because we've got to be thinking about balance. Then you've got, when you're losing weight, well, the calories in fat versus the calories in protein when looking at weight loss. We've said already, if we look down the bottom left here, that the kilocalorie deficit to lose 1 kilogram of fat is negative 7,700 kilocalories, versus the kilocalorie deficit to lose 1 kilogram of protein is only negative 1,100 kilocalories. If we get our macronutrient ratios incorrect, if we get our calorie supply incorrect, it is very easy for us to strip out that negative 1,100 kilocalories and start to lose lean body weight. And as we know, that will then suppress metabolism even further. It then comes to the type of exercise you do as well, weights versus cardio. Now with this, a lot of people say, well, you should do weights. Weights are better for weight loss. And I've had clients turn around and say, you know what, I was reading online that these people, they're all saying that weights are much better than cardio. So my first question to somebody who says that to me is, well, okay, well, where's the science? Why? If we look in a lot of the research, it says that you will burn 7 to 9 kilocalories per minute when you do weights. And there's a bit of a problem, I believe, with this, and I have had the chance to do a lot of research and see a lot of exercise scientists regarding it, that there's a bit of a shortfall if we use this blanket statement. And if I use an example, say mum and I, we're going to go to the gym. okay? And we're both going to go in and we're going to do a dumbbell bench press. Let's just focus on one exercise. So Mum's going to kick off. She's going to do 5 kilograms. She's going to do 10 repetitions, and she's going to do 3 sets. So Mum lifts the weight, and that means that she, for her 3 sets, is going to displace 150 kilograms, which is good effort. Good work, Mum. So she's displaced 150 kilograms. Now, if I go into the gym, Dad, no, Gav, and Gav's going to jump in and he does his dumbbell press. And let's say Gav's doing 40 kilograms. He's going to do 10 reps and he's going to do 3 sets. So I get in, I do this. That means I'm going to displace 1,200 kilograms. Simple law of physics says that, and obviously there's some efficiency factors in here, but across the board, to displace that mass, I just pointed at the screen, but displace my mass versus Mum's says that it's going to take me approximately 800% more energy to displace these. It's simple Newton's, simple laws of physics there. It's going to take me 800% more energy. Now, I understand that there is also recovery time, which will ameliorate some of this difference there. But let's even say that, you know, it changes it by 50%. So I'm going to burn 400% more energy. Does it mean Mum's burning 3 calories and I'm burning 12? Does it mean Mum's burning 5 calories and I'm burning 20? No matter which way we look at it, weight training is very effective for me, but for Mum at this point, it's not as effective. The problem we have, and I mentioned it earlier, is the frequency with which people train is very low. Most people don't train often enough. Okay, they don't train often enough, and so therefore they can't get strong enough to achieve great calorie burn from weight training. Is weight training essential? Yes, most definitely it is, because we know it helps us keep our muscle mass. Okay, it helps us keep the muscle mass. But is it going to be for your average person, a potent calorie burner? I think we really need to consider the science behind it. But let's have a look though. Say Mum is good and she's training 3 days a week. What happens? Mum increases her lift to 15 kilograms. She's going to do 10 reps and she's going to do 3 sets. What do we know? Mum's now displacing 450 kilograms or 300% more weight, which means her calorie burn is now going to go up. Weight training has the potential to be good for people who can train frequently enough and get strong enough to achieve the outcome. I know for mine, I'm a big fan of weight training. I know from when I was doing weights and bodybuilding, I was training 6 to 8 hours a week, probably 8 hours a week, and my body fat was lower than when I was training for 20 to 24 hours and doing Ironman. Big proponent, but you've got to become strong enough for it to be potent enough to be a super, super effective tool. So if we come back to our essentials there, the final one is simply macronutrients. So your macronutrients and H2O excretion via the kidneys there. We know that the combination of carbohydrates and insulin, they will result in some H2O excretion by the kidneys, which once again can result in decrease in body weight. So if we look at a summary there, okay, essential fat loss facts. The simplicity of energy in versus energy out is a linear physics model. It gives us a starting point. It's a starting point. It's a laboratory approach, but it gives us a starting point. For us to say, look, neglect it and don't even look at it, it's saying we don't have a starting point. We don't know where we're going to go. But it's so important that we consider and understand that as humans, we're complex and dynamic. And as soon as we start to diet, as soon as we start to lose weight, everything changes that's happening inside our body. From whether the insulin levels, okay, are they going to be modified because I've now changed my diet? I've now started to lose weight. We know there's a direct relationship between weight loss and changes in these factors. So we've got to constantly be feeding information back into any model that we use. Using the energy in, energy out, metabolic rate is a great starting point, but please don't think it is the only point. It's our starting point, and we want to understand so much more about our client. So just a quick summary. Is weight loss as simple as energy in versus energy out? No, but it provides us with a best practice starting point. What is successful weight loss? Well, it's not just the ability to lose weight, but more importantly, the ability to keep it off. Okay, the ability for us to fight against the body, which is fighting against us to try and make us put it back on. Things such as our metabolism, which is going through the adaptive thermogenesis. Things such as leptin, which is saying to somebody without them understanding why, eat, eat, eat. It's telling them hormonally to do it. So we want to have empathy in relation to how we can try and help somebody keep that weight off. As we said, metabolism and weight loss, it's a dynamic, not a linear relationship. As we lose weight, our metabolism will change. We know that even at the starting point, if we can't use gas analysis, which is the golden rule, and if you can, I believe DEXAs and gas analysis, and I'm going to mention this in part 3 of the series, are awesome. If you can do DEXA scans and you can do gas analysis, it gives you a really strong starting point to work with your clients. But there's such variation where it can be anywhere from 10% to 18% of what we might predict somebody's metabolic rate to be. You've then got adaptive thermogenesis, and as we said before, the body is very well adapted at stopping you from losing weight. Adaptive thermogenesis being one of those factors, and that's where we start. I haven't mentioned it yet, but we talk about plateaus, leading to plateaus. Adaptive thermogenesis is part of it. Working how we get somebody over those plateaus is an important thing, and some of the things that we look at will hopefully start to work towards strategies to getting somebody over plateaus in weight loss. The set point body weight theory. Okay, now we might, if you do believe in set point body weight, and I believe there is a certain point that somebody might be genetically determined there, the body, it might be a set point, but quite often it can be upregulated. Okay, can it be downregulated? Well, we haven't really seen it significantly yet, but it can be upregulated by responses such as increased hyperplasic response of fat cells and then the leptin response as a result. The body will then have a new point at which it says, look, don't go below that because I think you're starving yourself. The body, it's not well adapted to protect us against weight gain. It's happened so quickly, whereas opposed to weight loss, very well adapted. It's had thousands of years to do it. The abundance environment that we have is a significant bane of our life. The wealth that we have in the majority of the world is a bane of our life. And there's so many factors that we can look at, from media to TV, and how simply seeing TV can have an impact on appetite hormones. I digress there, and we're going to come back to ghrelin in series part 2 of the series. Is a calorie still a calorie? No. It's not as straightforward as we previously thought with respect to that. And that's where we look at things like leaky gut. Calories are being harvested. They're coming across the gut wall in obese individuals that have this leaky gut and metainflammation there. They're coming across, and what previously might go across in a normal microbiotic environment inside the stomach there, intestines, might come across what would have gone across as a calorie is now coming across as 1.2 calories. Between thermogen, and that is simply just an example, it's not an exact figure there. Between thermogenesis, the Atwater system, and exercise, the adaptive thermogenesis, the thermogenic effect of different types of nutrients, such as protein versus fat, there is a different calorie burn. We mentioned macronutrients and water excretion as well. So the intention of this as part 1 of the series is really to give an overview, talk about metabolic rate, because it's a real driver, and it is such an important foundation for where we're going to head. If you have any questions in relation to this part of the series, series 1, please email me at gavin@gavinakwilina.com. And I'll answer the questions in person, but I'll post most of the answers also at Gav Aquilina on Facebook. So please go to Gav Aquilina on Facebook, find me, like, and then you can have a look at the feed that comes through, and we provide a bit of motivation, but then we also try and provide a little bit of theory and knowledge throughout the Facebook posts as well. I'd really like to thank you for coming to Series 1. Series 2 is coming up, and if we have a quick look at what's happening in Series 2, I have the link here that you can see up top there, which is the Gumroad link again, Fat Loss 2. The code so that you can join for free is Fat Loss 2, and I haven't put it on this slide, but it is Fat Loss 2. Put that code in and you'll be able to get part 2 for free as well. What are we looking at? We're looking at the modern fat loss model, okay, and how it applies to your clients. So what are the things that we need to consider? How do we go a bit beyond that linear physics model of energy in versus energy out? How do we go beyond that and look at the factors that we need to consider in our client's obesogenic environment? The factors that we're going to look at, the physiological factors that we're going to look at and discuss, and this is where I think it's the really exciting stuff. We're going to be looking at cortisol. We're going to be looking at thyroid. We're going to be discussing ghrelin, leptin, and insulin in part 2. We're going to say, well, are these modifiable factors? Are they factors that are potentially having an impact on your client? Is one of them maybe having an impact, or more than one? What possibly could we do in relation to these? We're going to look at their background and how they will influence an overweight or an obese individual. So I'd like to once again thank you for joining me in part 1 of fighting against fat loss there. My name is Gavin Aquilina again. You saw before the link for providing feedback there, gavin@gavinaquilina.com. I really appreciate you joining me. I really hope you found this insightful. Please shoot any questions through, and I look forward to seeing you in part 2 of the series when we start looking at some of these physiological factors that may be having an impact. Have a great day, a great evening, a great morning, a great night, whichever country you're in, and I look forward to joining you in part 2 of the series.